The woman hunched over the restroom sink wasn't what she seemed. With yellow gloves on her hands and sweat clinging to her brow, she scrubbed the tile as if her life depended on it. Most people passed her without a second glance. Others whispered cruel things under their breath. She probably didn't finish high school. Sad life, cleaning toilets for a living. But what no one knew, not the hotel guests, not the arrogant manager, not even the staff who mocked her, was that she owned the entire building. Every floor, every room, every hallway, all hers. Her name was Evelyn Cross, a quiet woman in her late 60s with soft gray curls tucked under a faded cap. To the world, she looked like a janitor. But in her bank account sat over $42 million. No one knew how she made her fortune, real estate, mostly, and smart investments her own family never bothered to understand. But Evelyn wasn't cleaning for the money. She was here for something far more important, the truth. After her husband passed 2 years ago, Evelyn started to think differently. Their 3 adult children, Jessica, David, and Tyler, had grown entitled, impatient, and cold. They barely visited unless they needed something. And now they were circling like vultures, waiting for her to hand over everything. But Evelyn wasn't about to reward greed. She needed to know which one, if any, was worthy of carrying on her legacy. So she came up with a plan. Disappear from her glamorous life. Change her name. Take a minimum wage job at the luxury hotel she secretly owned. And watch. Not from a distance, but up close, where people show who they really are. She expected to be overlooked. What she didn't expect was the cruelty. "Hey, mop lady. You missed a spot," a guest barked, knocking over a coffee cup on purpose. Evelyn knelt silently to clean it up. In the elevator, an assistant manager wrinkled his nose and told her she smelled like bleach. Even the receptionist, a young woman Evelyn once helped pay through college, pretended not to know her. But worst of all were her children. Jessica waltzed into the lobby with her designer purse and loud voice, complaining about the poor service and demanding an upgrade. David tried to flirt his way into a suite he hadn't paid for. And Tyler? He didn't even recognize her. He handed her his luggage and told her not to scratch it. Evelyn's heart broke a little more with each interaction. These were her children. She had given them everything. But they had no idea that the woman scrubbing toilets was the very person who once tucked them in at night and sacrificed her own dreams so they could have theirs. Still, she kept quiet. Watched. Waited. Until one evening, just after midnight, someone slipped a folded note into her cleaning cart. No name. No return address. Just 6 words scribbled in shaky handwriting. "I know who you really are." Evelyn froze. Her hands trembled. Was she discovered? Was someone following her? Or was this a warning? She looked around, but the hallway was empty. And that's when she heard it, the sound of quiet footsteps approaching from behind. Evelyn didn't turn around right away. She held her breath, heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. The hotel hallway, dimly lit and quiet at this hour, suddenly felt too narrow, too close. The note in her hand crinkled softly as her fingers clenched it. For a moment, she felt like the walls were closing in. Then came the voice, low, almost hesitant. "Ma'am, you dropped this earlier." She turned slowly. A young man stood there, maybe in his 20s. Thin, with a tired face and a hotel badge clipped to his shirt. His name tag read Leo. He held out a folded rag she didn't even realize she had dropped. But Evelyn knew this note hadn't come from him. He looked too nervous, too sincere. Still, she gave a nod, took the rag, and thanked him. "Have a good night," Leo mumbled before walking away, glancing over his shoulder once like he wanted to say more but thought better of it. Once he disappeared into the service elevator, Evelyn unfolded the note again. Same 6 words. Nothing more. She scanned the hallway again, but there were no cameras in this section. That had been intentional when the hotel was designed, a quiet corner, often used by staff taking shortcuts. She had walked it 100 times now, but tonight it felt like a trap. Back in the supply room, she locked the door and sat on an overturned bucket. Her knees ached from the long shift, but her mind was racing faster than her body could keep up. Was it one of her children? Had someone figured her out? Or was this the start of something bigger? 2 weeks earlier, she had quietly moved into a small apartment a few blocks from the hotel, using the name Linda Moore. She wore second-hand clothes, drove an old pickup, and pretended not to understand technology. Her children thought she was in the mountains, resting after a health scare. But Evelyn was sharper than ever, just tired of being lied to, used, and pitted. Jessica, the eldest, was always polished and poised. A successful real estate agent on the outside, but Evelyn knew how deep her debts ran. Jessica wanted the family money to dig herself out of a mess she created with her designer lifestyle and poor choices. David, the middle child, was a smooth talker. He had a startup that didn't make a dime, yet he posted pictures of luxury vacations. And Tyler, the youngest, once full of promise, now drifted from job to job with no direction. They all came around when it suited them. Called just enough to keep up appearances. But none of them knew what Evelyn truly needed: truth, humility, a spark of decency. So she watched. The hotel lobby became her stage. Room service, cleaning schedules, late-night maintenance, she used them all to cross paths with her children, who had been lured there with a fake investment offer from a mysterious hotel owner. They didn't know she orchestrated it. She saw everything. How Jessica tipped poorly and barked orders. How David bragged to strangers about a business that didn't exist. How Tyler flirted with a married guest and pocketed things that weren't his. But this note, this was different. Someone was watching her, too. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. A message. Blocked number. It read, "Leave now. They're getting suspicious." Evelyn's breath caught. She hadn't told anyone her plan. Who was they? Was someone protecting her, or threatening her? She stood up slowly, glancing at the closed door. Then came a soft knock. 3 slow taps. Just like her late husband used to do. But he was long gone, wasn't he? Evelyn didn't answer the door right away. She stood perfectly still, eyes locked on the handle, waiting for it to jiggle, for a voice, for anything. But after those 3 soft knocks, silence followed. Her hands shook as she reached for the doorknob, but something in her gut told her to wait. She pressed her ear to the door, nothing. Just the distant hum of the hotel's central air and the occasional creak from the floor above. She sat back down and replayed the knocks in her mind. 3 slow taps, exactly how her late husband, Richard, used to knock when coming home from late business trips. It was their little signal. No one else knew that detail. No one alive, anyway. The message on her phone stared back at her like a warning. Leave now. They're getting suspicious. She didn't recognize the number, couldn't trace it even if she tried. The hotel had top-notch cybersecurity, she'd paid for it herself years ago. But someone had still slipped through. The next morning, Evelyn returned to her routine like nothing happened. Scrubbing toilets. Emptying trash. Smiling at guests who never saw her. But her eyes moved constantly now, searching for signs, someone watching too long, a camera pointed in a strange direction, a reflection in a polished surface. She was being hunted, or maybe protected. She didn't know which scared her more. Meanwhile, her children continued to orbit the hotel. Jessica had set up camp in the executive suite, complaining about the room temperature and ordering room service like royalty. She thought she was impressing someone important. David spent his time in the lounge, charming a few investors Evelyn had planted, actors playing the part, feeding him false hope about a big partnership. And Tyler, he wandered the halls late at night, always looking for shortcuts or secrets. He had no idea he was walking into a test every time he turned a corner. The more Evelyn watched them, the more disappointed she felt. But she also started to notice something else: cracks. Jessica cried in the elevator once when she thought no one was watching. David stared too long at an empty drink, his charm dropping for just a second. And Tyler, he visited the same floor every night, the one where the staff dorms were. Where Leo, the quiet night worker, lived. Evelyn grew curious. One night, she followed Tyler from a distance and saw him slip an envelope under a door. When he walked away, she knocked. Leo answered, surprised. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I think you've already helped me," she said softly, studying his face. Leo paused, then stepped aside and let her in. His room was small, clean, nothing fancy. On his desk sat a photograph, an old black and white of a younger Evelyn and her husband. She hadn't seen that photo in years. "How do you know Richard?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Leo looked down. "He helped my mother when no one else would. Gave her a job when she was pregnant with me. Said if I ever needed anything, to find Evelyn Cross." Evelyn's chest tightened. "But you're supposed to be in the mountains," Leo added. "At least that's what your daughter told me when she tried to have me fired." Evelyn's heart sank. Jessica knew Leo. Had tried to get rid of him. Why? Before she could ask more, Leo leaned in and whispered, "They think you're dead. And someone's making moves on your will." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "Who?" she asked. Leo hesitated. "I don't know yet. But I think it's someone close." Evelyn nodded slowly. It was worse than she thought. This wasn't just about her kids being spoiled. Someone was plotting behind her back. She wasn't just testing them anymore. She was in danger. And somewhere in that hotel, so was the truth. Evelyn couldn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her small bed, the city lights flickering through the blinds, her mind racing. Leo's words echoed over and over. "They think you're dead. Someone's making moves on your will." How could that be? She was alive, breathing, right here. But the longer she stayed in disguise, the more invisible she became. Maybe someone had decided that was permanent. The next morning, she moved carefully. Every hallway felt heavier. Every person who looked at her face made her wonder, do they know? Are they involved? She kept her head down, cleaning faster, listening more. She started taking notes, watching her children more closely than ever. Jessica spent hours on the phone, pacing around the lobby with fake concern in her voice. Evelyn managed to catch one side of a conversation. She told me she was going to change her will. I'm not risking everything over her last-minute guilt trip. Jessica's words stung, but Evelyn kept walking past, pretending not to hear. David was worse. He had found his way into the finance office. Evelyn had set that up with a trap in mind. She watched from the security cameras as he peeked at files he had no business opening. He snapped photos of confidential documents, especially the ones showing shares, property ownership, and transfer rights. He even muttered under his breath, "She'll never see this coming." But Tyler, he confused her the most. He stayed up late, often staring at the stars from the rooftop. Once, Evelyn found him near the staff lockers, tearing up a letter. She caught a piece as it floated to the ground. It read, "Mom, if you're really gone, that was all." No date. No signature. Just pain. Evelyn didn't know who to trust anymore. Not even herself. One evening, she met Leo again in the supply room. He looked tired, anxious. "Someone's been deleting security footage," he whispered. "I noticed the missing hours started right after you arrived." "Who has access?" she asked. "Only top management and your daughter." Evelyn blinked. "Jessica? She's been meeting with the hotel's lawyer. I overheard them talking about finalizing documents. They think you're gone for good." Evelyn's stomach turned. If Jessica was erasing evidence, then this wasn't just about inheritance. It was about control. She wasn't waiting for Evelyn to die, she was helping it along, at least on paper. That night, Evelyn decided she had to confront at least one of them. She chose David. She knew his pride would get the best of him. She left a handwritten note at the bar where he liked to show off. "Meet me at the rooftop. Midnight. Come alone. EC." At 11:59, Evelyn was already waiting in the shadows. The rooftop was quiet, wind tugging at her clothes, city glowing beneath them. David showed up 2 minutes later, alone, at least, that's what she thought. He looked around. "EC?" he called out. "Who is this?" Evelyn stepped out. His face went pale. "Mom?" Before she could speak, the rooftop door creaked open again. Footsteps. More than one. Leo's voice whispered in her earpiece. He had insisted she wear a hidden mic for safety. "Evelyn, get out of there. Someone's coming. This isn't safe anymore." She turned toward the shadows, heart pounding. Then came the sound of a gun cocking. And someone whispered coldly, "She wasn't supposed to live this long." Evelyn froze. The chill in the voice behind her was unmistakable, familiar, but twisted. She didn't turn around yet. Her eyes were locked on David, who looked just as shocked as she was. He raised his hand slowly, taking a cautious step toward her. "Wait," he said, his voice shaking. "We didn't plan this. I don't know what's happening." "Liar," the voice snapped. "You knew. You just didn't want to get your hands dirty." The barrel of the gun pressed lightly between Evelyn's shoulder blades. She finally turned, inch by inch, and gasped. It wasn't Jessica. It wasn't even Tyler. It was the hotel lawyer. Roger Kane. The man who had helped her set up her estate years ago. The man who knew every detail of her fortune. Every clause. Every fallback plan. He smiled bitterly, lowering the gun just slightly as he looked her in the eyes. "You always underestimated me," he said. "Even after 20 years. You handed me power over your legacy, Evelyn. You thought that came without cost?" David stared, stunned. What are you even doing? This wasn't part of..." Roger cut him off. "Oh, spare me. You wanted fast access to the money. I just helped speed up the process. What did you think all those meetings were for?" Evelyn's heart pounded. Her own lawyer had betrayed her. Worse, he'd pulled her son into the web. But there was something in David's face she hadn't seen before. Guilt. Real guilt. He looked like he wanted to run. Roger took a step forward. "When I found out you were here, hiding in mop closets and scrubbing tile like a ghost, I couldn't believe it. You could have just died quietly. Left it all in motion." Evelyn kept her voice calm. "And let you hand everything to the highest bidder?" He laughed coldly. "You say that like your children didn't already offer me a price." David turned to him. "That's not true. I never..." "Didn't you?" Roger snapped. "You offered your mother's legacy for a board seat. Don't pretend now." The wind howled across the rooftop. Evelyn's fingers twitched by her side. She didn't know what she could do, but she needed to stall. Somewhere below, Leo was listening. She hoped he had called for help, or had a backup plan. Then something shifted. A door behind them slammed open, and Jessica stormed out, phone in hand. "What is going on up here?" She stopped cold when she saw the gun. "Roger?" His grip tightened. "Don't come any closer." Jessica blinked. "You said you had it under control. What is this?" Evelyn turned to her daughter. "You knew about him?" Jessica's voice cracked. "He said you were already gone. He said we had to act fast before the hotel board handed control to someone else. I didn't know he had a gun." Roger's eyes narrowed. "You were never supposed to show up tonight. I told you to stay quiet." Jessica's hands trembled. Her phone slipped from her fingers and hit the concrete with a sharp crack. Then a voice crackled through a small earpiece in Roger's ear. A voice Evelyn recognized instantly. "Tyler. She's not the only one who planned ahead." Roger went pale. "What?" Tyler's voice came through again, louder now. "I've been recording all of this. I knew something wasn't right. I followed the paper trail, Roger. You covered it well, but not well enough." Evelyn looked at David. His mouth was open, stunned. "You were working with him?" Evelyn whispered. David shook his head. "No. I didn't know about Tyler. I swear." Roger's hand twitched. The gun raised slightly again. Then came the sound of sirens in the distance, growing closer. Leo had done it. But the danger was still too close. Roger's eyes darted around. Desperate. Cornered. And Evelyn knew, this wasn't over yet. Roger's hand trembled as the sirens grew louder, echoing up the side of the hotel. The flashing red and blue lights danced against the rooftop walls. He took a shaky step backward, still holding the gun, eyes wild now, like a man whose plan had unraveled too fast to catch. "You don't understand," he muttered. "You're all so blind. She was going to change everything. None of you were getting a dime. That was the point, Evelyn said quietly, her eyes locked on his. You were never supposed to have it. None of you, not until you earned it. Jessica was frozen, lips parted, heart visibly pounding in her chest. David stared at Roger like he didn't recognize him anymore. And Evelyn, standing between her children and the man who had betrayed her trust, felt more alive than she had in years. Roger raised the gun again, desperate, cornered, eyes darting. Then came the sudden crack of a rooftop door slamming open again. Tyler. He stepped out calmly, phone still recording, and held up both hands. Drop it, Roger, he said. It's over. Cops are already in the lobby. Your emails, your phone calls, your forged documents, I sent everything to the DA 10 minutes ago. Roger spun toward him. You don't have the guts. I don't need guts, Tyler said. I just needed proof. And now I've got it. For a second, everything held still. Then Evelyn took a single step forward, slowly, steadily. Roger, she said gently, you were like family once. But you forgot something. I don't give my legacy to people who lie. I give it to people who stand up even when it's hard. The sirens were right below them now. Officers stormed the stairwell. Roger's eyes darted to the ledge, then to Evelyn. He dropped the gun. It clattered to the ground. Moments later, police officers surrounded them, cuffing Roger and escorting him away. He didn't fight. He just looked at Evelyn once, cold, defeated, and said, "You could have trusted me." "I did," she replied. "And that was my mistake." Jessica sank to the ground, stunned, her hands shaking. David backed away, saying nothing. And Tyler, he came to Evelyn's side and helped her sit down on the rooftop bench, just as the chaos settled. The officers took statements. Leo appeared moments later, breathless, still in his uniform, and gave Evelyn a nod. She smiled faintly, thankful. Hours passed before the hotel was quiet again. By dawn, Evelyn sat in the main lobby, the same place she had mopped every day for weeks. Her children stood in front of her, each one changed, not just by what happened, but by what had been revealed. Jessica looked broken but honest. David kept his eyes down, ashamed. Tyler, though, he looked different. Steady. Present. "I wasn't testing you just for the money," Evelyn said. "I wanted to see if you could protect something bigger than yourselves." Jessica finally spoke. "Did we pass?" Evelyn looked at her, long and hard. "Some of you did." Then she pulled a folder from her bag and handed it to Tyler. He blinked. "What's this?" "It's the controlling share of the hotel," she said. "You're not the oldest, or the smartest. But you were the only one who did the right thing without expecting anything back." Jessica gasped. David stepped back, stunned. Tyler opened the folder, hands shaking. "Mom." But Evelyn raised a hand. "There's one more thing," she said softly. They all leaned in. She pulled out a second envelope. "It turns out I'm not the only one with a secret." They stared at her. She looked at Leo. "Tell them who you really are." Leo stepped forward, hesitated, then smiled slightly. "My name isn't Leo," he said. "It's Richard Jr. Your father had a child before he met Evelyn. I'm his son." The room fell silent. Evelyn's eyes never left her children. "Family isn't just about blood," she said. It's about what you fight for when no one's watching. And with that, everything changed. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Jessica's mouth opened slightly, but no words came. David looked between Leo, no, Richard Jr., and Evelyn, as if trying to piece together a puzzle he never knew existed. And Tyler, still holding the folder that now carried the weight of a future he hadn't planned for, slowly sat down on the couch beside his mother. Evelyn let out a slow breath. I kept Richard's identity hidden because your father asked me to. He wanted to give all of you a fair start. He didn't want to complicate things. But over time, I realized, hiding the truth only delayed the lessons we all needed to learn. Leo, Richard Jr., nodded slightly. I didn't come for money. I came to make sure my father's name wasn't turned into a business transaction. I've watched from a distance for years. Evelyn brought me close when she realized something was going wrong. Jessica looked down at her hands, tears forming. I let money change me, she said quietly. I thought you were gone, and all I could think about was protecting what I thought I deserved. I'm sorry, Mom. Evelyn reached out and gently touched her daughter's hand. I don't need perfect children. I just needed you to see the truth. David stood off to the side, struggling with himself. He finally spoke. I thought I had it all figured out. That I could outsmart the process. I didn't even stop to ask what really mattered. You can still change, Evelyn said softly. But that choice has to come from you. The tension began to ease. No one had all the answers, but something had shifted. Truth had brought them back to the ground. Evelyn stood up, walked to the lobby windows, and looked out at the city just waking up. The same city where she had once built an empire, and later scrubbed floors to protect it. She turned back to her children and Richard. Starting tomorrow, we're going to rebuild this business as a family. A real one. No more secrets. No more shortcuts. Tyler looked at the folder in his hands. Do you want me to run the hotel, or just keep it safe? Evelyn smiled. Both. And not just the hotel. I want you to help lead something bigger. A foundation. A legacy. For people like the woman I pretended to be, quiet, overlooked, underestimated. I want our story to help others. Jessica wiped her tears. I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Evelyn nodded. You'll have to earn that trust back. But we'll do it together. David looked at Richard Jr. And you? Richard smiled. I'll be here. Not as a threat. But as someone who understands what it means to start over. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light into the hotel lobby, Evelyn felt peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was honest now. The woman they had laughed at for cleaning toilets turned out to be the only one who knew how to clean up what truly mattered. Her story wasn't just about secret millions or hidden heirs. It was about testing hearts, not wallets. And as the family gathered around her, ready to rebuild what they nearly lost, Evelyn knew the real inheritance was finally being passed down: wisdom, humility, and the courage to begin again. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the city, a new chapter had already begun.